There is a silence that lingers above the desert, a silence so ancient, so vast, that it feels older than time itself. Beneath the moon's pale glow, three colossal shapes rise from the golden sands, shapes so precise, so impossibly perfect, that even today their presence bends the imagination. They do not speak, and yet they radiate a grandeur that feels almost otherworldly, as if carved not by human hands, but by the geometry of the cosmos itself. For thousands of years, the Great Pyramids have remained untouched by the noise of the world. Their stones are warm memories of an age when humanity first looked upward and wondered if the universe was watching back. Every angle, every shadow, every line of their architecture whispers the same question. How could a civilization so ancient create something so flawless, so aligned, so enduring? Some call it engineering, some call it mystery, others call it a message. Beneath the desert's surface lies a labyrinth of chambers and forgotten pathways, corridors filled not with treasures, but with unanswered questions. The mathematics, encoded in their design, mimics celestial cycles. Their ground plan mirrors the stars, and their purpose remains suspended somewhere between myth and science, waiting for a mind quiet enough to notice its subtle clues. As you drift deeper into this story, the sands of time begin to soften. The Nile flows backward through memory. Torches flicker in halls carved to honor eternity. And the civilization that once walked these lands, visionary, meticulous, impossibly advanced, begins to rise again in the stillness of your imagination. Tonight, we will walk beside them. We will follow the starlit logic they engraved into stone, and we will listen, not for what history has told us, but for what the pyramids themselves have been waiting thousands of years to say. The desert holds memories in a way no other landscape can. Beneath the shifting dunes lie layers of forgotten centuries, each grain of sand carrying echoes of footsteps that once crossed this silent expanse. Long before the pyramids rose against the horizon, this land already understood stillness, already knew how to preserve the whispers of civilizations that would come and go like passing shadows. And when the architects of the ancient world arrived guided by stars, by ritual, by a vision far larger than themselves, the desert received their ambition with quiet patience. To stand in this place is to feel time blur. The heat that radiates from the earth carries the same warmth felt by workers thousands of years ago. The faint winds that glide across the plateau mimic the same currents that once cooled the skin of pharaohs and astronomers who studied the night sky with meticulous devotion. In these subtle sensations, the boundary between past and present dissolves. You begin to sense that the desert has never truly changed. Only the hands and minds that walked upon it have shifted across the ages. Ancient Egypt was not simply a civilization, it was a conversation with eternity. Every monument, every symbol, every carefully measured line was crafted with the intention of reaching beyond mortal life. The people who lived here did not view death as an ending, but as a transition, a doorway into a grander cosmic order. Their architecture reflected this belief, their mathematics refined it, and their rituals gave it breath. In this worldview, the pyramid was not a tomb. It was a vessel, an instrument designed to harmonize human existence with the rhythms of the universe itself. Even now, as you imagine the vast landscape stretching in every direction, you can feel the weight of that intention. The air holds a quiet density, as though the desert is trying to communicate something subtle, something ancient, something that survives not through words, but through the resonance of structure and space. And as this sense deepens, you begin to understand why the pyramids stand exactly where they do, aligned with the stars, anchored to the earth, suspended between the physical and the eternal. The architects of ancient Egypt did not think in simple lines and shapes. They thought in cosmic patterns. To them, geometry was not merely a tool but a language, a way to communicate with the universe through structure and proportion. The pyramid, in its silent perfection, is the clearest expression of this language. Its angles mirror celestial alignments. Its base encodes the curvature of the earth. Its proportions whisper of constants that would not be formally discovered until thousands of years later. This was not accidental. It was deliberate, a quiet demonstration of a knowledge that feels impossibly advanced for its age. When you trace the edges of the Great Pyramid with your mind, you begin to sense its precision. Each stone, some weighing more than a modern vehicle, was placed with a margin of error thinner than a human fingernail. Over 2 million blocks, arranged in a harmony so exact that even now, satellites measuring the Earth's crust use the pyramid as a reference point. How did a civilization with no modern tools achieve such a feat? How did they lift, align, and position each block so flawlessly that the structure has survived earthquakes, storms, and the rise and fall of empires? The deeper scholars look, the more the mystery grows. Hidden within the geometry are ratios that appear across nature, the golden proportion found in seashells, galaxies, and leaf patterns, the pie-like relationships embedded in their perimeter, the uncanny alignment of the structure with true north, accurate to a fraction of a degree. It is as if the ancient builders understood that the universe itself has a rhythm, a mathematical heartbeat, and they carved that rhythm into stone so it would echo through time. As you imagine walking around the pyramid at dusk, the air cool and the desert turning blue beneath the fading light, you may feel a strange sensation, an awareness that this massive structure is more than a monument. It feels alive in its stillness, humming with an ancient logic that your mind instinctively recognizes but cannot fully articulate. And in that recognition, you sense what the builders might have intended, not just to honor their pharaohs, but to leave behind a message encoded in symmetry and light, waiting for distant generations to rediscover. Deep within the pyramids lies a silence so complete, so undisturbed, that it feels almost sacred. These chambers, cut into stone with unyielding precision, were never meant to be entered casually. Their walls are smooth, their angles immaculate, their proportions intentional. Each passage narrows and widens with a mathematical rhythm, creating an acoustic stillness unlike any found in the natural world. When researchers step inside, even their breath feels louder than it should be, as if the structure itself is listening. The profound quiet suggests that the ancient builders understood something essential. Purpose begins with silence. The inner architecture of the pyramids has puzzled scholars for centuries. Some believe these chambers were designed for rituals that guided the soul into the afterlife. Others propose they served as symbolic gateways, mathematical replicas of the cosmic journeys described in sacred texts. A few suggest something far more mysterious, that the internal layout was built not for the living, but for the dead, the stars, and the eternal cycles that bind them together. Yet no explanation fully accounts for the flawless engineering, the absence of decoration, or the strange resonant energy that visitors often describe. As you imagine descending deeper into these hidden spaces, you can sense the shift in atmosphere. The desert heat fades, The air grows cooler, denser, heavier with history. The walls around you seem to pulse faintly with the weight of time, thousands of years compressed into stone. You feel the geometry tightening around you, drawing your attention inward. It is here, in this quiet heart of the pyramid, that the ancient Egyptians performed their most sacred acts of measurement, alignment, and ritual. These halls were built to channel intention, to guide awareness, to merge earthly existence with something greater. What makes these chambers extraordinary is not simply their design, but their restraint. There is no ornamentation to distract the mind, no carvings to interpret, no narratives to follow. Only pure structure angles, lines, spaces, and silence. And in this purity lies the most intriguing possibility, that the chambers were crafted to influence consciousness itself. A place where sound behaves differently. A place where stillness deepens naturally. A place where the boundary between the physical and the symbolic blurs. Whether intended for meditation, ceremony, or transformation, the effect remains the same. The deeper you go, the quieter the world becomes, and the more clearly you begin to sense your own presence in it. Long before modern astronomy existed, the ancient Egyptians treated the night sky as both a map and a memory. To them, the stars were not distant flames scattered across darkness. They were markers, consistent, predictable, and deeply symbolic. Every movement, every seasonal shift, every flicker of celestial rhythm held meaning. The architects who designed the pyramids worked not only with stone and sand, but with the heavens themselves. Their measurements were guided by constellations, their orientations aligned with cosmic cycles, and their calculations woven into a choreography between earth and sky that feels astonishingly advanced for its time. Imagine standing upon the plateau thousands of years ago, when artificial light had not yet diluted the brilliance of the night. The sky would have been overwhelming, an ocean of stars stretching uninterrupted across the horizon. It was within this luminous expanse that the architects found their compass. They studied the slow rotation of the heavens around the North Star. They memorized the rising points of specific constellations. They charted the motion of Orion, an arrangement of stars that would become a silent blueprint for the layout of the pyramids themselves. This alignment was not aesthetic, it was intentional, symbolic, and deeply mathematical. The positioning of the Great Pyramid relative to true north is so precise that modern technology struggles to match it. Scholars still debate how ancient builders achieved this without compasses, telescopes, or digital instruments. Some suggest they tracked the shadow of the sun. Others propose they observed the circumpolar stars with astonishing consistency. Regardless of method, the result reveals an understanding of the Earth's axial tilt, celestial drift, and seasonal variance that should have been far beyond their capability. Yet there it stands, stone proof that the ancient Egyptians perceived the universe with a clarity we still strive to comprehend. As you let your imagination drift upward, you may sense why the sky mattered so much to them. The stars represented permanence in a world of impermanence. They offered continuity, cycles, and patterns that extended beyond the span of a human life. Aligning their structures to the heavens was not merely an act of reverence, it was an attempt to anchor human memory within cosmic order. To link the pharaohs, who were seen as bridges between realms, to the immortal constellations that watched silently over the desert. And in doing so, the architects transformed the pyramids into instruments of time, monuments that remain synchronized with the sky even as centuries pass. When most people imagine the construction of the pyramids, they picture endless lines of laborers struggling beneath the desert sun. But archaeological evidence paints a very different picture, one of remarkable organization, skill, and collective purpose. The men and women who built these monuments were not nameless slaves. They were artisans, engineers, stonecutters, astronomers, and laborers who dedicated their craft to something they believed would outlast their own lives. Their work was an offering to eternity, and the precision of the pyramids reflects the pride they carried in each cut, each measurement, each placement of stone. As you picture the workers moving through the ancient city at dawn, you can almost hear the distant rhythm of tools tapping against limestone, the muted echo of wooden sledges dragging across lubricated sand, the low hum of coordinated effort. The scale of the workforce was immense, yet their movements unfolded with a quiet order guided by overseers who understood not only engineering, but the natural behavior of materials, angles, and elemental forces. The organization required to feed, house, and synchronize thousands of people is itself a marvel, revealing a society that valued structure as deeply as the geometry it carved into stone. Within this collective effort, each individual played a role that contributed to the whole. Quarry workers shaped raw blocks with copper tools sharpened again and again under the desert sun. Engineers measured distances with ropes stretched taut by careful hands. Transport teams coordinated the shifting of heavy stones using sledges, ramps, and an understanding of friction that was far ahead of its time. Even artists contributed, marking stones with symbols to guide placement in the upper tiers. Small notes of instruction that still survive today. Quiet fingerprints left by minds long turned to dust. As you drift deeper into this world, you begin to feel the humanity behind the monuments. These workers laughed, rested, dreamed, and lived. They shared meals, held rituals, and raised families in villages that thrived beside the construction sites. Their belief that they were participating in something sacred infused the project with a sense of unity rarely seen in history. It is this unity, this merging of skill, devotion, and purpose that allowed the pyramids to rise not as mere structures, but as expressions of a civilization's deepest understanding of life, death, and eternity. There is a quiet mystery hidden within the very material of the pyramids, a mystery carved not into symbols or inscriptions, but into the stone itself. The limestone blocks, drawn from quarries miles away, contain microscopic fossils and crystalline structures that interact subtly with temperature and light. At sunrise, the outer casing stones once gleamed with a brilliance so radiant that the pyramids appeared as luminous beacons rising from the earth. This reflective quality was not incidental. It was a deliberate choice, transforming the monuments into instruments of illumination. To the ancient Egyptians, light was not merely a physical phenomenon, it was a sacred force, a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. And by capturing and reflecting that force, the pyramids became vessels of cosmic resonance. Inside, the properties of the stone reveal an equally compelling design. Granite, used in the internal chambers and passageways, contains quartz, a mineral capable of vibrating when subjected to pressure or sound. Some researchers believe this piezoelectric potential was understood intuitively by the builders, who positioned the granite in areas where resonance would be strongest. Whether intentional or accidental, the result is extraordinary. Certain chambers amplify sound in ways that feel almost otherworldly. A single spoken note lingers longer than expected, and deep tones vibrate subtly through the walls. Those who enter describe a physical stillness that settles into the body, a sensation that feels less like sound and more like the quiet hum of the earth itself. As you imagine walking deeper into these granite-lined passages, the outside world begins to dissolve. The temperature drops. The air thickens with a cool, mineral presence. Shadows move softly across the smooth, angular surfaces, creating a sense of rhythm even in complete silence. Each step feels deliberate, as if the structure is guiding you rather than simply containing you. Your awareness narrows. Your breathing slows. It becomes easy to imagine why ancient priests believed the pyramid's interior was a place where the boundaries between physical and spiritual states could shift. Here, the architecture does not merely shelter thought, it shapes it, drawing the mind towards stillness and the heart toward contemplation. This interplay of material and intention suggests a profound understanding of sensory experience. The pyramid is not designed to overwhelm, it is crafted to quiet. The stones absorb noise, the geometry guides movement. The alignment with cardinal directions creates an invisible balance that the body seems to recognize instinctively. Even the lack of decoration is purposeful. By stripping away visual distraction, the builders created a space where the mind can drift, where consciousness can soften, and where the deeper layers of awareness can rise gently to the surface. In this sense, the pyramid becomes not just a monument, but a state of mind, a carefully engineered environment that invites introspection and serenity. Outside, the desert enhances this experience. The vast horizon stretches in every direction, offering an emptiness that feels expansive rather than lonely. The wind carries only the faintest trace of sound, and the golden light of late afternoon wraps the landscape in a warmth that seems to linger even after sunset. Standing at the base of the pyramid, you can sense the meeting of two immense forces, the patience of the desert and the precision of human ambition. It is in this meeting that the true essence of the pyramids emerges, a fusion of natural beauty and human ingenuity, shaped by a desire to build something that would speak across millennia. And as the stars begin to appear slowly, delicately, one by one, the purpose of all this becomes clearer. The pyramids were designed to exist in conversation with the cosmos. By day, they reflected the light of the sun. By night, they mirrored the patterns of the sky. They served as anchors in a world governed by celestial movement, repositories of knowledge that could withstand the erosion of time, and symbols of a civilization that understood its place in a vast and mysterious universe. In their silent, enduring presence, you begin to feel a truth that surpasses history. The pyramids were not built to remember the past, they were built to preserve eternity. To understand the pyramids, one must first understand the mindset of the people who commanded their creation, the pharaohs, figures who stood not merely as rulers, but as living symbols of cosmic order. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh represented a bridge between earth and sky, between humanity and the divine, between the fragile temporality of life and the vast undying rhythms of the universe. Their reign was not only political, it was metaphysical. Every decision, every ritual, every architectural vision reflected the belief that existence stretched far beyond the boundaries of a single lifetime. And in this worldview, immortality was not a myth or a hope, it was an expectation, a continuation of duty in another form. The pyramid became the physical embodiment of this philosophy. It was not a tomb in the modern sense, nor a mere memorial. It was a vessel designed to guide the pharaoh's ka, the vital essence, through the celestial pathways described in sacred texts. According to ancient belief, the soul would ascend towards the northern sky, where the circumpolar stars never set, never fade, never die. These imperishable ones, as Egyptians called them, represented eternal life. Aligning the pyramids with these stars was neither symbolic nor decorative, it was functional. The architecture served as a cosmic compass, oriented to ensure the pharaoh's spirit could rise unimpeded into the realm of eternity. Imagine, for a moment, the rituals that unfolded in the shadow of these monuments. Priests dressed in linen moved silently across polished floors, carrying incense bowls whose scents drifted upward like offerings to the sky. They recited hymns that traced the journey of the soul from darkness into radiance. Each word was believed to activate the sacred geometry of the structure, unlocking invisible pathways that connected the earthly world to the astral one. The walls echoed faintly with the cadence of their chants, and the desert wind, gentle, warm, unhurried, carried those sounds across the sands as if extending the ritual into the limitless horizon. For the Egyptians, death was not a descent, but an ascension. The elaborate mummification process, the placement of amulets, the orientation of the sarcophagus, all were parts of a carefully calculated system meant to preserve the energetic coherence of the individual. To be whole was to remain connected to purpose, and the pyramid itself magnified this purpose, acting as a stabilizing structure through which the soul could retain identity while transitioning into higher realms. The symmetry, the mass, the alignment all contributed to a sense of cosmic order that reflected their understanding of balance, harmony, and cyclical renewal. As you dwell on this worldview, a deeper realization begins to take shape. The pyramids were not built out of fear of death, but out of reverence for continuity. They expressed a profound acceptance that life extends beyond its visible form, that consciousness flows onward, and that existence does not terminate, it transforms. Standing at the base of such a monument, you may feel the weight of this belief not as an ancient superstition, but as a quiet, timeless intuition. The sense that the universe listens, remembers, and preserves, that nothing truly ends, it simply changes shape. And this is perhaps the most enduring legacy of the pharaohs, the belief that human life can resonate with the cosmos, that our actions and intentions can be woven into the eternal fabric of existence. Through the pyramids, they sought not only to transcend mortality, but to merge with the vast symphony of the universe. And in their silent, towering presence, you may find yourself sensing that same possibility, a gentle awareness that even the smallest moment of clarity, intention, or stillness can ripple outward across time, leaving a subtle echo in the infinite. Long before stone rose into the sky, long before geometry shaped sacred monuments, it was the Nile that breathed life into Egypt. This river, steady and ancient, flowed like a pulse through the desert, an artery of water in a land otherwise defined by silence and sand. Each year, its gentle flood deposited layers of fertile soil along its banks, transforming barren land into a ribbon of green that sustained every aspect of Egyptian existence. Without the Nile, there would be no agriculture, no cities, no pharaohs, and certainly no pyramids. The river was not simply a resource, it was a cosmic force, a symbol of renewal that mirrored the cycles of life, death, and rebirth that shaped Egyptian thought. Imagine standing beside the river during the season of inundation, when the rising waters stretch outward like a great reflective mirror. The surface trembles in the warm breeze, turning the sky above into a shimmering tapestry of distorted stars. Farmers wait with quiet anticipation, knowing that these waters carry the promise of another year, a promise that life will continue, that the earth will yield, that the balance between humanity and nature will remain intact. This cycle of flooding, retreating, and nourishing became the foundation of Egyptian cosmology, a reminder that even destruction serves a greater order, a resetting of the world so that creation may flourish again. The river shaped more than the landscape. It shaped the minds of the people who lived beside it. Its predictable rhythm taught them to study patterns. Its vastness taught them to respect scale. Its reflective surface taught them to observe the heavens, which danced nightly upon its waters. In this way, the Nile became not only the source of life, but the source of knowledge. Priests, astronomers, and architects gathered along its banks to measure shadows, track celestial alignments, and predict the arrival of the next flooding season. These observations eventually evolved into the mathematical and astronomical systems that allowed the pyramids to be built with such astonishing precision. As you picture the ancient settlements lining the river, you may sense the quiet harmony that once existed here. Wooden boats drifted across its glassy surface. Fishermen cast nets that glimmered in the sun like woven light. Children played at the water's edge, their laughter dissolving into the soft murmur of the current. And from the higher ground, the unfinished silhouette of a pyramid would rise above the horizon, an immense reminder that human ingenuity was always in conversation with the natural world. The river nurtured bodies, but it also nurtured dreams, providing the emotional and spiritual landscape that inspired the grandest projects of the civilization. To the Egyptians, the Nile was more than geography. It was a living deity. They believed it flowed from a sacred realm, carrying with it the essence of divine order. This concept, woven into every decision and ritual, represented harmony, balance, and truth. The pyramids themselves were physical expressions of Ma'at, symmetric, stable, aligned, eternal. The steady pulse of the river and the enduring mass of the stone structures formed two halves of the same philosophy, that life flourishes when aligned with universal balance. When you stand in this imagined world, you can feel that balance like a slow, deliberate breath, a rhythm that connects nature, architecture, and consciousness. And as the sun sets over the water, turning the river into a ribbon of molten gold, you begin to sense why the pyramids were built along its western bank. The west was the direction of the setting sun, the threshold of the afterlife. From this vantage, the pyramids watched each day transition into night, each life into eternity, each moment into memory. The river carried the living, the pyramids guided the dead. Together, they formed a perfect duality, a meeting of motion and stillness, change and permanence, the mortal and the eternal. In this harmony, the essence of Egypt's unparalleled legacy becomes clear, a civilization that listened to the pulse of the earth and built monuments capable of echoing it across time. The world of ancient Egypt was woven together by symbols delicate, precise, and saturated with meaning. To the casual observer, hieroglyphs may appear as simple drawings etched into stone, but to the Egyptians, they were fragments of divine speech, a bridge between the visible and the invisible. Each symbol carried layers of intention, a sound, an idea, a cosmic principle, a memory anchored in time. When carved onto temple walls or inscribed onto papyrus, these glyphs did more than tell stories. They preserved consciousness. They were considered living forms capable of influencing the world long after the hand that wrote them had turned to dust. In the great ceremonial halls, priests recited these symbols aloud, activating their hidden potency. Their voices echoed softly through towering columns, transforming sacred scripts into soundscapes that resonated with the architecture around them. The Egyptians believed that words were not merely descriptive, they were creative. To speak a thing was to shape it, to carve it was to stabilize its essence, and to place it near the resting place of a pharaoh was to ensure that his identity, purpose, and memory would endure beyond the fragile boundaries of mortal existence. In this way, writing became a technology of eternity. As you envision the scribes at work, you can almost hear the delicate scratching of reed pens dipping into ink made from soot and crushed minerals. Their movements were slow, deliberate, rhythmic, an act of meditation as much as communication. They copied prayers, celestial diagrams, mathematical sequences, and ritual instructions with a discipline that bordered on sacred devotion. Their script did not simply document the world. It organized it, giving form to cosmic order and guiding the living toward alignment with Ma'at, the eternal balance of the universe. To write was to participate in the maintenance of reality itself. The symbols extended far beyond writing. Egyptian art, too, functioned as a visual language. The position of a figure, the direction of a gaze, the size of a silhouette, each element conveyed hierarchy, divinity, and intention. Even colors were chosen with precision: gold for the eternal flesh of the gods, blue for the waters of creation, green for rebirth, black for fertile soil, and the promise of renewal. Nothing was accidental. Every image was a coded message, a quiet reminder that the physical world mirrored unseen forces. By surrounding themselves with these symbols, the Egyptians lived within a cosmology that reinforced meaning at every turn. Inside the pyramids, however, something remarkable occurs. The symbols vanish. No hieroglyphs adorn the main chambers, no murals cover the walls, no narrative instructs the viewer. This absence is not a lack, it is a design. The silence of the stone becomes the message. In a place where every detail in Egyptian culture was saturated with symbolism, the unadorned interior of the pyramid stands out like a deliberate pause in a symphony. Scholars still debate its meaning, but one interpretation resonates deeply. Inside the pyramid, symbols become unnecessary because the monument itself is the symbol pure, refined, stripped to its essential geometry. It communicates through form rather than language, through stillness rather than depiction, through space rather than image. And as you sit within this imagined quiet, a deeper understanding begins to settle. The Egyptians mastered two modes of communication, one lush and detailed, filled with signs, colors, and mythic imagery, and one stark, silent, architectural, so perfectly composed that no additional mark could strengthen it. Together, these modes reflect a civilization that saw the world not as a collection of things, but as a layered interplay of meaning. In this interplay, the pyramids stand at the highest point, not just as monuments to rulers, but as expressions of a worldview that sought to encode eternity itself into stone, leaving behind a script that the universe, not the human eye, was meant to read. To appreciate the pyramids fully, one must step into the minds of the ancient engineers, individuals who possessed a level of insight into mathematics, geology, astronomy, and labor coordination so advanced that their achievements still challenge modern understanding. These were not inventors tinkering with raw ideas, nor artisans working through intuition alone. They were master planners who approached construction with a kind of scientific spirituality, seeing the physical world as a canvas shaped by universal laws. Every measurement they made, every foundation they laid, every stone they aligned was an act of collaboration with the natural order. They did not merely build within the world, they built in harmony with it. The engineers studied the desert landscape with meticulous attention. They understood how the bedrock beneath the plateau carried stress. They measured the angle of the sunlight at different times of the year. They recognized how wind patterns shaped the dunes and how temperature shifts could expand or contract stone. To them, construction was not only a matter of force and labor, it was a dialogue with the environment. Before a single block was placed, they tested soil strength, observed seasonal changes, and mapped the geometry of the heavens overhead. This preparation created the conditions necessary for a structure so perfectly balanced that it has endured longer than most civilizations. Consider the tools they used: ropes, copper chisels, wooden sledges, stone hammers. Primitive by modern standards, yet wielded with such precision that the resulting architecture rivals, and in some cases surpasses, what can be achieved with advanced machinery. The engineers compensated for technological limitations with extraordinary skill and organization. They measured distances not with lasers, but with knotted cords stretched taut by teams trained to maintain exact tension. They aligned the pyramid to true north, not with compasses, but by tracking the rotation of circumpolar stars. They leveled massive surfaces using channels filled with water, a natural instrument more precise than many modern leveling devices. Such ingenuity reflects not merely intelligence, but an incredible harmony between human perception and the natural world. The coordination required to move millions of limestone blocks speaks to an engineering brilliance of a different kind, one centered on human logistics. Temporary cities sprang up near the construction sites, housing thousands of workers, craftsmen, cooks, doctors, and administrators. Supplies had to be delivered daily: food, water, tools, materials. Rotating teams worked in cycles, allowing construction to progress continuously without exhausting the workforce. Medical care reduced injuries. Efficient housing increased morale. Proper nutrition sustained strength. These details reveal a level of organization comparable to modern mega-projects, except carried out without mechanized tools, written blueprints, or digital communication. The pyramid rose not just through physical labor, but through an ecosystem of human cooperation, as carefully structured as the stone layers themselves. As you picture this vast operation unfolding under the desert sun, you can sense how the project's scale would shape the consciousness of everyone involved. Workers were not simply moving stone, they were participating in something that felt larger than life, something sacred and scientific at once. Engineers walked the site with a quiet authority, their calculations guiding the rhythm of thousands. Supervisors traced alignments in the sand, ensuring every angle served the monument's cosmic purpose. Even the humblest laborer carried within them the knowledge that their efforts contributed to a structure that would outlast generations. And in this shared purpose, a kind of collective identity emerged, dissolving the boundaries between individual ambition and civilization-wide vision. What remains most astonishing is not just the technical ability of these engineers, but the philosophical clarity behind their work. They understood that perfection is not achieved by resisting nature, but by cooperating with it. They recognized that the cosmos operates according to patterns, and that those patterns can be reflected in human creation. They believed that architecture could embody the principles of eternity, harmony, and transformation. And in turning those beliefs into stone, they left behind not just a monument, but a message, a demonstration that the human mind, when aligned with the rhythms of the universe, can achieve the impossible. Long before the pyramids took shape in stone, they existed as patterns in the sky, silent arrangements of light that guided the Egyptians' understanding of life and the afterlife. The night above the desert was a flawless canvas, untouched by haze or light pollution, revealing constellations with a clarity we can scarcely imagine today. Among these constellations, one stood above all others, Orion. To the Egyptians, Orion represented Osiris, the god of rebirth, cosmic order, and the eternal cycle of death and renewal. The three stars that form Orion's belt gleamed above the desert, with a symmetry that seemed both mathematical and divine. The architects looked upward, saw this celestial alignment, and made a decision that would echo through millennia. They would mirror the heavens on earth. The three great pyramids of Giza were arranged not arbitrarily but in precise correspondence with Orion's belt. Their positions matched the relative placement of the stars, and their slight offset, so subtle many don't notice it at first glance, mirrors the asymmetry in the sky. This alignment was not decorative, it was functional. The Egyptians believed that for the pharaoh's soul to ascend toward the celestial realm of Osiris, the architecture on earth needed to reflect the structure of the heavens. A cosmic pathway had to be carved into stone, recreating the map that already existed in the night sky. In this way, the pyramid complex became both a destination and a departure point, a terrestrial anchor for a journey written among the stars. Sirius, the brightest star visible from Earth, played an equally significant role. To the Egyptians, it represented Isis, the divine mother, the force of magic, the protector of life. Each year, just before sunrise, Sirius would reappear on the horizon after a period of invisibility. This heliacal rising marked the beginning of the Nile's flood season, signaling renewal, abundance, and the promise of another year. The Egyptians timed their calendar to this rising. They timed their rituals to it, and some scholars believe they oriented specific structures to ensure that Sirius's return could be observed through narrow shafts or corridors. In this interplay of architecture and astronomy, the pyramids became not only monuments but instruments, giant observatories tuned to the rhythms of the cosmos. When you imagine the ancient sky, it becomes easier to understand why the Egyptians placed such importance on these celestial relationships. Stars were constant when human lives were fragile. They repeated their patterns across generations, offering a sense of continuity and meaning that transcended political shifts and natural cycles. To align a monument with a star was to align human existence with cosmic permanence. It was a declaration that life could be anchored to something larger, something timeless. The Egyptians believed the soul moved along these celestial pathways, traveling through specific constellations on its way to immortality. The pyramids were engineered to facilitate this passage not symbolically, but energetically, structurally, and spatially. The shafts within the Great Pyramid provide further evidence of this cosmic architecture. Some align with Orion's belt. Others point toward the circumpolar stars, the ones that never set, never fall below the horizon, and were believed to be the eternal destination of the pharaoh's soul. These shafts were not wide enough for a human body. They were designed for something far more delicate, the movement of spirit, of alignment, of intention. In the darkness of these narrow passages, the stone becomes a conduit between earth and sky, between what is seen and what is felt. The pyramid ceases to be a mere structure and becomes an interface, a bridge between realms that would otherwise remain separate. And as you picture this fusion of astronomy and architecture, a deeper understanding emerges. The pyramids were not designed only for the dead, and not only for the gods, they were built for the universe itself. They were an attempt to place the human experience inside a cosmic framework, to echo celestial harmony in the material world, and to ensure that the pharaoh's journey was not a lonely ascent, but a continuation of an ancient, universal rhythm. In the pyramids, the Egyptians anchored their legacy to the stars, and in looking up at those same stars today, we can still feel the echo of their intention, silent, enduring, carved into the night. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not an end but a transition, a passage into a realm known as the Duat, a dimension woven from starlight, darkness, memory, and transformation. Unlike the modern idea of an afterlife, the Duat was not a distant paradise. It was a vast cosmic landscape where the soul journeyed through trials, revelations, and symbolic rebirths. This journey was both personal and universal, reflecting the nightly voyage of the sun god Ra as he descended into the underworld, confronted chaos, and rose again with the dawn. In this cyclical view of existence, every soul mirrored the cosmos, and every transition echoed the pulse of creation itself. The pyramids were engineered as gateways into this mythic geography. Their internal chambers, steep angles, and narrow passages were not random architectural choices. They were symbolic corridors representing the challenges a soul would face in the Duat. The darkness inside was intentional, a reminder that spiritual clarity arises only when the distractions of the outer world fall away. The ascent through the passages symbolized the soul's climb toward enlightenment, while the descent represented the shedding of earthly identity. Each step deeper into the structure mirrored the inward movement of consciousness itself, as if guiding the mind to a quieter, more expansive place where transformation becomes possible. The sacred texts, later known as the pyramid texts, offered detailed descriptions of this cosmic journey. They spoke of guardians, thresholds, rivers of light, and fields of eternity where the soul could rest before rising to join the stars. These texts were not merely poetic, they were navigational tools, spiritual maps to ensure the pharaoh's successful passage. And although many of these inscriptions were carved into later pyramids rather than the earliest ones, the architectural design already embodied their ideas. The earliest pyramids communicated through structure rather than words, guiding the soul with geometry instead of script, intention instead of instruction. Imagine the priests performing the sacred opening of the mouth ritual within the chamber, their quiet chants vibrating faintly through the granite walls. They believed that this ceremony reawakened the senses of the deceased, allowing the spirit to breathe, speak, and perceive once more. As incense drifted upward like pale smoke carried into the unseen, the chamber transformed into a liminal space, half physical, half spiritual. The architecture magnified the ritual, the darkness deepened the silence, and the stone itself seemed to respond, holding every sound with a subtle resonance that blurred the line between the living and the eternal. What makes the Egyptian view of the afterlife so extraordinary is its balance between order and mystery. The Duat was a place of challenges, yet it offered renewal. It demanded strength, yet promised peace. It mirrored the cycles of nature, the setting sun, the rising stars, the flooding river, reminding the living that nothing truly ends. In this worldview, the pyramids become more than monuments. They become anchors in a universe governed by rhythm. They stabilize the transition between life and death, serving as quiet companions to a soul embarking on its cosmic journey. Their mass, their silence, and their perfect geometry form a constant in a world defined by change. And, as you picture this journey, you may feel a subtle recognition forming within you, an intuition that the Egyptians understood something profound about the nature of existence. That life and death are not opposing forces but phases of a single unfolding experience. That the universe itself is a cycle of descent and ascent, darkness and illumination, forgetting and remembrance. The pyramids, in their silent wisdom, embody this truth. They stand as reminders that the path beyond is not to be feared, but understood, that every ending hides an unseen beginning, and that the soul, like the sun, is destined to rise again. In the heart of ancient Egypt stood a class of individuals whose influence shaped not only the daily life of the civilization, but the very architecture of its beliefs. The priests and scribes, guardians of knowledge and interpreters of cosmic order. These were not mere religious figures. They were astronomers, mathematicians, healers, and philosophers whose quiet work behind temple walls guided the construction of monuments, the interpretation of celestial movements, and the preservation of sacred memory. The pyramids, though built by thousands, were conceived through the minds of a few individuals who carried the immense responsibility of bridging the human world and the divine. The priests of ancient Egypt lived within a rhythm of ritual and observation. Each morning, before the desert light had fully awakened the land, they performed ceremonies intended to restore the cosmic balance they believed held the universe together. This balance was not abstract. It was woven into the architecture of temples, the alignment of pyramids, and the precision of the calendar. These priests studied the movement of stars from temple rooftops, recognized patterns in the heavens, and used that knowledge to instruct engineers and rulers alike. Their work created a seamless flow between the spiritual and the scientific, as if both emerged from the same quiet source. Scribes, on the other hand, carried the responsibility of memory. With reed pens dipped in ink made from soot and ochre, they documented mathematics, medical knowledge, astronomical cycles, and the stories of kings. Their training was long and meticulous. Every symbol they wrote had weight. Every line they inscribed carried the intention to endure. In a civilization where writing was considered sacred, scribes became custodians of eternity. It was through their careful work that the wisdom of generations accumulated, each text a delicate thread added to the tapestry of collective knowledge. Yet the most intriguing aspect of these knowledge keepers was their silence. Much of what they understood was never written down. Sacred geometries, ritual practices, star alignments, and metaphysical ideas were often transmitted orally, preserved through lineage rather than inscription. This secrecy was not meant to withhold truth from the people. It was meant to protect delicate knowledge from being diluted, misunderstood, or misused. The pyramids themselves contain echoes of this secrecy. Their undecorated interiors, their hidden chambers, their silent corridors suggest that the deeper teachings were meant to be experienced, not explained. Imagine walking through a temple courtyard at dusk, where priests move quietly between columns carved with symbols of cosmic creation. The air carries the scent of burning resin. A faint chant resonates like a slow vibration through stone. In this moment, knowledge does not feel like information. It feels like atmosphere, like something absorbed rather than learned. It is within this atmosphere that the architects of the pyramids drew their inspiration, merging the precision of scribes with the spiritual insight of priests to create structures that embodied the deepest truths of their world. What remains remarkable is that this fusion of science and spirituality did not create conflict, it created clarity. The Egyptians did not separate the physical from the metaphysical, the measurable from the symbolic. To them, the universe was a single, interconnected system in which stone, star, number, and soul all reflected the same underlying order. The priests tended to this order. The scribes recorded its expressions, and together they shaped a civilization capable of building monuments that could outlast time itself. Through their quiet labor, they left behind not just structures of stone, but a legacy of understanding that still invites us to look deeper, listen longer, and sense the invisible patterns that shape the world. Long before the pyramids rose from the sand, the desert had already shaped the consciousness of those who lived along its edges. Its vastness, its stillness, its endless horizons created a natural environment for contemplation, an expanse that asked nothing and yet revealed everything to those patient enough to listen. The Egyptians understood the desert not as emptiness, but as presence, a place untouched by noise, distraction, or chaos. In this immense silence, they sensed a purity that mirrored the eternal. And it was within this silence that the earliest ideas for monumental architecture began to take form, emerging like mirages from the depths of human imagination. Standing in the desert, one becomes aware of a profound equilibrium. The land appears motionless, yet every dune changes shape with the wind. The sky looks still, yet stars wheel across it with perfect precision. This duality, stillness above movement, permanence above change, inspired the Egyptians to create structures that embodied the same paradox. The pyramids would be both motionless and dynamic, unchanging yet aligned with cosmic cycles, silent yet resonant with meaning. They would rise from the desert as extensions of its calm, transforming the landscape into a symphony of stone and shadow where every angle carried intention. The geometry of the pyramids reflects this desert-born philosophy. Their smooth, sloping sides mimic the gentle curves of the dunes, yet their apex points directly toward the infinite sky. Their foundations anchor deeply into the bedrock, yet their silhouettes seem to float against the horizon. This blend of solidity and subtlety creates an experience unlike any other. To stand before a pyramid is to feel the weight of time and the lightness of eternity at once. The desert amplifies this sensation. its vast silence turning the monument into a focal point of awareness, an anchor for the mind seeking stillness. In the golden hours of dawn and dusk, the pyramids cast shadows that stretch across the sand like slow-moving tides. These shadows, shifting with the sun's path, serve as silent reminders that even the most unchanging structures participate in cosmic movement. As the day unfolds, light reveals new facets of the stone textures, colors, gradients that appear and disappear like breath. The Egyptians understood this interplay of light and shadow as a dialogue between the physical and the metaphysical. They built their monuments not only to withstand time, but to converse with it, to mark its passage while remaining untouched by its erosion. The desert's silence also shaped the sensory experience of entering a pyramid. Outside, the air hums with subtle heat and wind. Inside, the sound collapses entirely. The temperature drops, the walls tighten around you, and the mind naturally shifts inward. This contrast was intentional. The architects designed the experience so that stepping into the pyramid felt like stepping into another dimension, one defined not by the physical vastness of the desert, but by the vastness of inner space. In this inner quiet, the mind slows, breath deepens, the boundaries of thought soften. The structure becomes a vessel for stillness, using silence as its most powerful material. And as you imagine standing alone in this architectural silence, surrounded by stone that has witnessed more centuries than any living memory can hold, you begin to sense why the Egyptians chose the desert as their canvas. Here, nothing distracts from the essential. Here, the soul hears its own echoes. Here, the pyramids fulfill their ultimate purpose, to create a sanctuary of stillness strong enough to hold the weight of eternity. In this meeting between human intention and the desert's eternal quiet, the essence of Egypt's ancient genius becomes clear, a recognition that true stability arises not from resisting change, but from aligning with the timeless. To build the pyramids, the ancient Egyptians first had to understand the earth not in a superficial sense, but with a sensitivity that bordered on alchemy. They observed the character of stone, the structure of minerals, the behavior of sand in wind and heat. They studied how limestone fractured, how granite resonated, how basalt endured. From these observations, they learned to select materials not only for strength, but for symbolism. Limestone reflected sunlight, evoking the radiance of the sun god Ra. Granite held deep resonance, representing stability and permanence. Basalt absorbed heat and stood as a metaphor for primal creation. In their hands, geology became philosophy, stone became a language. The process of quarrying stone was itself a ritual. Workers carved channels around massive blocks, tapping copper chisels against the rock until a single deep sound reverberated through the quarry, a sign that the stone was ready to release. They used wooden wedges soaked in water to widen cracks, allowing the stone to separate naturally rather than through force. This careful approach reflected a belief that materials should be guided, not broken, persuaded, not conquered. Every block taken from the earth was treated as something alive, something that carried its own story, its own presence. And when thousands of these blocks were arranged into a pyramid, the result was not a structure, but a symphony of earthbound energies. Transporting the stones across the desert required equal mastery. Sledges glided over sand that had been dampened to reduce friction, an early understanding of physics long before such principles were written into scientific law. Teams moved in coordinated rhythms, pushing and pulling in unison, their feet pressing patterns into the sand that would vanish by morning. In this way, the Egyptians transformed the desert into an extension of their tools, shaping the environment to meet their purpose without violating its essence. The journey of each stone symbolized the journey of the soul forward, upward, guided by unseen forces and collective intention. As the stones reached the building site, master masons stepped forward to refine their edges. With astonishing precision, they smoothed surfaces until they fit so tightly that even a knife blade could not slide between them. This accuracy was not achieved for beauty alone. It was part of a deeper vision. Perfect alignment allowed the entire structure to distribute weight evenly through its core. Symmetry ensured stability across centuries. Orientation unified earth and sky. In this interplay of math and matter, the Egyptians discovered that geometry could be a conduit for eternity, an invisible scaffolding upon which reality itself could rest. When the casing stones were added, the pyramids shimmered like mountains carved from sunlight. Their polished surfaces reflected the desert in waves of gold, creating an illusion that blurred the line between physical structure and luminous mirage. At dawn, the pyramids glowed. At noon, they blazed. At dusk, they softened into pastel silhouettes that blended seamlessly with the horizon. Light became their second material, malleable, radiant, eternal. The Egyptians believed that by shaping stone to hold light, they were preserving the essence of creation itself, capturing the sun's life-giving force and anchoring it permanently into the earth. And when the work was complete, something extraordinary emerged. A structure that did not simply occupy space but transformed it. The pyramid altered the landscape, altered the experience of perception, altered the movement of shadow and wind. It harmonized with the desert, amplified the sky, and created a focal point where the physical and metaphysical converged. In shaping millions of stones into a single perfect form, the Egyptians achieved what few civilizations ever have they built, not only a monument, but a state of being, a stillness, a presence, a reminder carved into the earth that human intention, when aligned with nature and cosmos, can touch eternity. Deep within the pyramids lies a phenomenon so subtle, so unexpected, that even modern researchers struggle to fully explain it: the acoustics of the inner chambers. These spaces were not carved haphazardly. Their proportions, angles, and materials create a resonance that feels almost alive. When a low tone is hummed or spoken within the king's chamber, the granite walls seem to respond, amplifying the sound until it vibrates through the body like a gentle wave. This resonance is not merely an echo, it is a sustained, harmonic vibration that interacts with the chamber's geometry, as though the room itself were an instrument carved from the earth. The granite blocks that form the chamber contain high concentrations of quartz and feldspar minerals known to vibrate under pressure, a property now recognized as piezoelectricity. In the presence of sound, these minerals shift ever so slightly, producing micro-vibrations that travel through the stone. The Egyptians may not have described this in scientific terms, but they understood its effect. The chamber's dimensions were chosen with uncanny precision, aligning the room to specific frequency ranges that calm the nervous system and slow the breathing. In this way, sound became a tool for transformation, guiding the mind into deeper states of stillness and awareness. Imagine standing alone in that chamber, your footsteps muted by the cool stone beneath you. If you speak, even softly, the sound doesn't fade. It lingers, swells, seems to travel outward in every direction at once. It feels as though the walls are listening, absorbing the tone and returning it to you in a purer form. This effect creates a unique sensory experience. The boundaries between your voice and the space around you begin to blur. Your breath slows naturally. Your thoughts soften. The chamber becomes a kind of resonance chamber for consciousness itself, inviting the mind to settle into a quieter rhythm. Some researchers propose that rituals were performed here, using chants designed to activate the chamber's acoustic properties. These chants may have synchronized breathing, guided emotional states, and perhaps even induced altered states of perception among priests or initiates. Whether or not these theories are historically accurate, the experience itself is undeniable. The chamber transforms sound into sensation, turning the human voice into a bridge between inner and outer worlds. In the stillness of that enclosed space, sound becomes a form of energy, a vibration that seems to connect the present moment with something ancient, something enduring. This acoustic design was not limited to the king's chamber. Other passageways amplify footsteps, while some spaces dampen sound entirely, creating pockets of silence so deep that you become aware of your own heartbeat. The architects understood the emotional and psychological effect of sound far better than we often give them credit for. They used silence and resonance the way a sculptor uses shadow to guide perception, to shape experience, to create a journey not just for the body, but for the mind. In this sense, the pyramid is not only a tomb or a monument, it is a carefully tuned instrument for introspection. And as you imagine these subtle vibrations circling the chamber, you sense the deeper meaning behind this architectural mastery. The Egyptians believed that the universe itself was created through sound, through the primordial utterance that set existence into motion. By crafting chambers that responded to voice and vibration, they mirrored this cosmic truth within stone. The pyramid became a place where sound could return to its source, where the human voice could harmonize with the geometry of creation, and where the seeker could feel, if only for a moment, the quiet pulse of eternity echoing within their own breath. When we look at the pyramids today, we often ask a simple question: how? How did a civilization without advanced machinery lift stones weighing dozens of tons? How did they achieve measurements so exact that modern tools struggle to replicate them? How did they master geometry, astronomy, acoustics, labor logistics, and geology to a degree that feels centuries ahead of their time? The Egyptians never answered these questions with written manuals. Their technology was not documented in scrolls or diagrams. It was embedded in practice, ritual, observation, and a kind of intuitive engineering passed from generation to generation. Much of this knowledge vanished not because it was forgotten, but because it was never meant to exist outside the human mind. It lived in the gestures of masons, in the training of priests, in the rhythm of chants, in the careful placement of stones, a technology written not in ink, but in action. Some researchers propose that the Egyptians possessed sophisticated surveying techniques, perhaps using simple tools to achieve results that seem impossibly precise. Others suggest they had deep empirical knowledge developed through centuries of trial and error. Still others believe that their understanding of materials, angles, and cosmic cycles allowed them to make decisions that aligned with natural forces rather than resisting them. The truth likely lies in a blend of all these elements, a harmony of intuition and observation, science and ritual, logic, and myth. Their brilliance was not in any one tool, but in the integration of everything they knew. Imagine the training of a young apprentice stonecutter. He would learn not by reading, but by watching, feeling vibrations in the rock, listening to the tone of a chisel strike, sensing the shift in weight as a block began to loosen. Over time, his hands would acquire knowledge that his mind could never articulate. The movement of sand, the pressure of wind, the density of stone, these became his vocabulary. In this way, knowledge passed silently through generations, becoming deeper, more refined, more embodied. When thousands of such skilled individuals worked together, the result was not simply labor, it was collective intelligence. This lost technology also included an understanding of human organization on a scale rarely seen in ancient history. Coordinating thousands of workers required complex planning, food distribution, medical care, rotation of labor crews, water transport, stone delivery, and architectural oversight. The Egyptians built entire temporary cities to support pyramid construction cities with bakeries, breweries, workshops, and hospitals. They even maintained detailed records on ostraca, shards of pottery, tracking rations and attendance. The construction site was not chaos, it was an engine of order, a living organism powered by precision and purpose. This logistical mastery was itself a form of technology, one that modern megaprojects still struggle to match. And yet, perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of their technology is what they chose not to explain. They left no boastful inscriptions claiming their achievements, no technical manuals detailing their methods, no grand declarations of intellectual superiority. Instead, they left behind the pyramids themselves, silent, immovable, perfect. In this silence is a profound message, that true knowledge does not always need explanation. Sometimes it is expressed through what it creates, not what it says. The Egyptians understood that a monument built in harmony with the earth and aligned with the cosmos would carry its meaning far longer than any written record. As you feel the weight of this idea settle within you, a deeper perspective emerges. The pyramids are not relics of a lost technology, they are the technology. Their geometry, their scale, their acoustics, their alignment, all of it functions as a teaching, a demonstration of how human intention can shape matter into meaning. They remind us that humanity, once built not to impress but to understand, not to dominate but to harmonize. And in their quiet endurance, they whisper a truth that modern civilization often forgets. Knowledge anchored in nature, humility, and purpose can outlast empires. When one thinks of the pyramids, it is easy to imagine them standing alone in the desert, isolated and enigmatic. Yet in their original form, the pyramids were part of a vast, interconnected complex, a sacred landscape meticulously designed to reflect both earthly order and celestial harmony. Temples, causeways, courtyards, satellite pyramids, ceremonial enclosures, and aligned roads formed a network that operated like a living organism. Each structure served a purpose. Each pathway guided movement. Each orientation mirrored a cosmic principle. The entire plateau was not simply built, it was orchestrated, like a symphony of stone and space, resonating with the rhythms of the heavens. The mortuary temples, located near the pyramid's base, were designed as gateways between realms, places where rituals bridged the world of the living with the world of the eternal. Their columns rose like stylized reeds, echoing the marshes of creation, where the first mound of land emerged from the primordial waters. Their walls bore inscriptions that invoked protection and transformation. These temples were not merely ceremonial, they were engines of symbolic power, shaping the spiritual environment for the pharaoh's eternal journey. Every offering, every chant, every procession added energy to the structure, reinforcing the cosmic alignment embodied in the pyramid itself. Leading from the mortuary temple to the valley temple was a long covered causeway, a corridor of transition. This passage was more than a physical route. It was a symbolic journey from life to death, from the world of light to the threshold of the Duat. The causeway aligned with specific solar and stellar events, allowing beams of light to penetrate its length during solstices or equinoxes. Imagine walking through this long, shadowed corridor as sunlight streams in from far ahead, creating a slow-moving river of illumination across the floor. In this moment, space becomes metaphor, light becomes guidance, and the architecture itself becomes a teacher. Valley temples, located closer to the Nile, served as arrival points for sacred processions. Bodies of pharaohs were purified here, bathed in water drawn from the river that gave life to Egypt. The Valley Temple acted as the threshold between world and monument, between the flowing, ever-changing energy of the Nile and the still, unmoving geometry of the pyramids. Here, priests performed rituals that harmonized the pharaoh's earthly body with the cosmic forces encoded into the pyramid's architecture. The temple acted like a transformer of spiritual energy, taking the fluidity of life and preparing it for the stillness of eternity. Surrounding the main pyramids were smaller pyramids for queens, mastaba tombs for nobles, and administrative quarters for workers and priests. These structures were arranged with intentional order, creating a miniature city of the dead that mirrored the order of the living. The placement of each building was guided by principles of balance, symmetry, and cosmic resonance. Even the cemeteries followed celestial logic, tombs oriented toward the rising sun or specific stars, reminding the departed that the journey beyond remained aligned with universal order. This spatial arrangement reveals the Egyptians' belief that death required not only ritual but environment, a carefully shaped landscape that supported the soul's transition. And when viewed as a whole, the pyramid complex becomes something extraordinary, a map of the cosmos carved into the earth. Every corridor, every angle, every structure participates in a dialogue between sky and sand. The complex captures the cycles of nature, mirrors the motions of the heavens, and provides a stage for rituals that echo the creation of the world. It is not one monument but many, not one intention but a constellation of them. Together, these structures create a profound statement that human beings can shape the earth in ways that honor the universe, that architecture can become philosophy, and that a landscape can be designed not merely to exist but to breathe. To the ancient Egyptians, the sun was not merely a celestial object, it was the very engine of existence, the cosmic heartbeat that governed every cycle of life, light, and renewal. Each morning, as the sun rose over the eastern horizon, it symbolized the triumph of order over chaos, of life over darkness. Each evening, as it descended into the west, it mirrored the journey of every soul, eventually passing into the unseen. The pyramids were positioned within this cosmic theater with extraordinary precision. Their western placement was not incidental, it was essential. For the Egyptians, the west was the realm of the setting sun, the gateway through which the pharaoh would enter the afterlife. By building the pyramids on the west bank of the Nile, they aligned the pharaoh's eternal rest with the daily cycle of cosmic rebirth. The sides of the pyramids, sloping gently upward, mimic the rays of the sun itself broad at the base, converging toward a single radiant point. In this geometry, the Egyptians saw a path of ascension. The pharaoh's soul, preserved within the inner chambers, was believed to climb these symbolic rays toward the heavens. The smooth casing stones, now mostly lost, would have caught the sun's light with breathtaking brilliance, transforming the pyramid into a literal mountain of illumination. At sunrise and sunset, the structure would glow with golden fire, becoming a visual bridge between earth and sky. In these moments, the pyramid became a cosmic lighthouse, guiding the soul on its journey through the cycles of rebirth. Within the pyramid complex, solar temples played a central role in both ritual and cosmology. These temples were designed to capture and direct specific angles of sunlight, allowing priests to perform ceremonies synchronized with the movements of the sun. On certain days of the year, beams of light would enter these temples in perfect alignment, illuminating statues, altars, or sacred inscriptions. This phenomenon was not a coincidence. It was the result of careful astronomical observation. The Egyptians treated sunlight as a divine material, an element that carried power, healing, and truth. To harness it architecturally was to harness a fragment of creation itself. The corridors and shafts within the Great Pyramid further reflect the sun's significance. Some shafts align with the sun's zenith position during solstices, allowing sunlight or symbolic sunlight to enter the depths of the structure. In doing so, they created controlled environments where darkness and illumination could interact, representing the eternal interplay between death and rebirth. Imagine standing in one of these passages as a thin beam of light pierces the darkness, illuminating the dust motes suspended in the air. The silence deepens. The moment becomes timeless. This interplay of shadow and radiance was not simply atmospheric, it was spiritual, guiding both the living and the departed toward an understanding of cosmic rhythm. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh, upon death, merged with the sun god Ra, accompanying him on his nightly journey through the underworld and rising with him in the dawn. The pyramid thus became a vessel for this celestial cycle. Its orientation toward the cardinal directions ensured perfect alignment with the sun's path. Its angular form echoed the primeval mound that first rose from the waters of chaos at the beginning of time. In this mythic correspondence, the pyramid became both a tomb and a cosmic engine, a structure designed to reenact the universe's creation each day, ensuring the pharaoh's eternal rebirth. And as you imagine the setting sun casting long shadows across the plateau, painting the desert in shades of gold and violet, a profound realization takes shape. The pyramids are not static monuments, but dynamic participants in the cycles of nature. They catch the light, they shape the shadows, they mark the days, the seasons, the solstices. They are instruments that measure time not with mechanical parts, but with the movement of the cosmos itself. In their silent geometry, they preserve a worldview in which death is not darkness, but transformation, not an end, but a horizon where the sun prepares to rise again. Modern eyes often see the pyramids as grand monuments of stone and labor. Ancient minds, however, saw them as instruments, structures designed to harmonize with forces far greater than themselves. To the Egyptians, the universe was not an empty space, It was alive with unseen currents, rhythms, and energies. They believed that harmony existed when physical structures aligned with cosmic principles. And in this alignment, the pyramids functioned as more than tombs. They became cosmic machines, translating celestial order into earthly form. The alignment of the Great Pyramid to true north, astonishingly precise, suggests an understanding of the planet's orientation long before compasses existed. This perfect north-south alignment anchors the structure within the Earth's magnetic and rotational fields. It stabilizes the pyramid, not only physically, but symbolically, placing it at the crossroads of terrestrial and celestial forces. The Egyptians believed that harmony emerged when human intention aligned with universal structure. By anchoring the pyramid to the planet's axis, they transformed it into an axis of meaning, an earthly reflection of the cosmic pole around which the heavens revolve. The structure's internal geometry supports this idea. The descending passage points toward a region of the sky once associated with the dark, mysterious realm of the Duat. The ascending passage, narrow and steep, rises toward the upper chambers, mirroring the soul's journey into illumination. Shafts within the pyramid align with specific stars Orion, associated with Osiris, and other circumpolar stars symbolizing eternity. When the night sky shifted due to precession, the alignments changed, but the intention remained: to place the pharaoh within a framework that connected him to the cycles that govern creation. The proportions of the pyramid reveal another layer of cosmic design. Its geometry encodes relationships found throughout nature. The ratio of its base to its height approximates the mathematical constant pi. The slope of its sides resonates with the golden ratio, a pattern seen in flowers, galaxies, and the human body. Whether or not this was intentional in a modern mathematical sense, the Egyptians sensed these harmonies intuitively. They recognized that the universe expresses itself through patterns and proportion, and they carved those patterns into stone. The pyramid thus became a material expression of universal order, a stabilizing force that mirrored the architecture of creation. Even the placement of the pyramid complex along the Nile reflects this deeper intention. The river mirrored the sky. Just as the Milky Way stretched across the heavens, the Nile flowed across the earth. By placing the pyramids on the west bank, aligned with the setting sun and the stars of rebirth, the Egyptians positioned their monuments at a point of cosmic reflection. The land became a map, the sky a guide, and the pyramid a node where these two realities converged. In this convergence, the Egyptians believed that the veil between worlds grew thinner, that the boundary separating the mortal from the eternal dissolved. Some modern researchers propose that the pyramids may have had energetic properties, subtle interactions between stone, geometry, and electromagnetic fields. Whether or not such claims hold scientific weight, the idea itself reflects a truth the Egyptians understood intuitively, that form and environment shape experience. A space designed with balance creates balance within the mind. A structure aligned with the cosmos aligns the soul. The pyramid's silence, symmetry, and mass generate not only awe, but a profound sense of stability. To stand before it is to feel anchored, to sense a deep, quiet harmony that radiates through the desert air. And as you imagine the Great Pyramid rising against the horizon, illuminated by moonlight and framed by ancient stars, you begin to understand the essence of its design. It is not simply a structure, it is a statement, a declaration that humanity can exist in harmony with the universe, a reminder that architecture can hold meaning beyond its physical form, and a symbol that when intention, knowledge, and reverence converge, even stone can reflect the infinite. The pyramid stands as a testament to this truth, that we are not separate from the cosmos, but shaped by it, aligned with it, and capable of expressing its patterns through our own creations. At the peak of every pyramid once sat a small but powerful structure, the pyramidion, a perfectly carved capstone meant to complete the monument's geometry. Though none of the original capstones survive atop the Great Pyramids today, ancient descriptions and archaeological fragments tell us they were crafted with exquisite precision, often covered in electrum, a blend of gold and silver that glowed intensely under the sun. When light struck the pyramidion, it ignited like a radiant flame, turning the pyramid's apex into a beacon visible for miles across the desert. To the Egyptians, this glowing point was not merely decorative, it symbolized the moment where Earth touched the sky. The pyramidion represented the culmination of the pharaoh's spiritual journey. Just as the broad base symbolized the physical world, the peak symbolized the point of ascension, the moment when the soul rose beyond the boundaries of material existence. In Egyptian cosmology, the apex of the pyramid was associated with the Benben stone, the primordial mound that first emerged from the waters of chaos at the beginning of creation. By placing a glowing capstone at the top of the pyramid, the Egyptians were reenacting this moment of cosmic birth. The structure thus became not only a monument to eternity, but a recreation of creation itself. The geometric precision of the pyramidion elevated its symbolic power. Its angles were crafted to perfection, aligning with the larger geometry of the pyramid below. In some temples, miniature pyramidions have been found covered in inscriptions describing the sun god Ra, the pharaoh's ascension, and the cyclical nature of rebirth. These inscriptions served as metaphysical instructions, reminders that ascension was not an escape from the world, but a return to the cosmic source. The capstone, sitting at the highest point of the pyramid, acted like a conduit through which the pharaoh's soul would rise, guided by light, geometry, and cosmic balance. Imagine the moment the capstone was placed. A hush falling over thousands of workers, the desert wind pausing in anticipation, ropes tightening as the final block was raised, shimmering under the noonday sun. In that moment, the pyramid transformed from an immense structure into a complete entity, its geometry unified, its purpose fulfilled. The capstone sealed the monument with intention, turning it into a cosmic instrument calibrated to the heavens themselves. This act of completion carried immense symbolic weight, representing not only the end of a project but the beginning of a journey that would continue long after the pharaoh's earthly life. The loss of the pyramidions adds a layer of mystery to their meaning. Without the capstone, the pyramid feels open, unfinished, a silent reminder of the fragility of time and the impermanence of even the most enduring structures. Yet some scholars believe that this absence is part of the story. A missing capstone invites contemplation, urging us to imagine the monument as it once was, glowing with celestial fire, touching the sky in a single point of light. The absence becomes a presence, a void that speaks, reminding us that completion is always temporary, that creation is an ongoing process, and that mystery itself is part of the monument's design. And as you picture the pyramid crowned with its radiant capstone, gleaming under the rising sun, a deeper meaning reveals itself. The pyramid was never truly complete, because its final purpose was not architectural, but spiritual. Its geometry aligns with the universe. Its chambers shape consciousness. Its passages mimic the journey of the soul. The capstone, whether present or absent, symbolizes the final step, the moment of merging with the infinite. In this sense, the pyramid's peak is not a physical endpoint, but a conceptual horizon, a reminder that the human quest for understanding always points upward toward the unknown. The pyramids stand as guardians of time, their surfaces weathered by wind, sand, and sun, yet their presence unchanged in essence. Over thousands of years, storms have swept across the desert, kingdoms have risen and fallen, languages have evolved, and entire civilizations have disappeared into the currents of history. Yet the pyramids remain, like colossal anchors holding the world in place. Their endurance is not accidental. It is the result of engineering so masterful and intention so profound that even time itself seems to move around them rather than through them. In this resilience, the pyramids become more than monuments. They become memories carved into earth and sky. The erosion on their surfaces is not damage, it is narrative. Each softened edge, each weathered stone, each faint tremor in their geometry tells a story of survival. The desert winds have traced their fingertips across the limestone for centuries, polishing some surfaces and hollowing others, leaving behind patterns that resemble the delicate work of an artist rather than the brute force of nature. These marks remind us that time is not an enemy, it is a sculptor, and in its slow, patient carving, time reveals the inner strength of what was built with such absolute purpose. Beneath the shifting sands around the pyramids lie layers of forgotten structures, temples, workshops, cemeteries, and causeways slowly submerged under the desert's drifting tides. Archaeologists uncover fragments of these worlds piece by piece, brushing away centuries of silence to reveal pottery shards, carvings, tools, and footprints baked into ancient mud floors. Every discovery adds a new voice to the chorus of history. Yet, for each artifact found, countless others remain hidden, suggesting that the true scale of the pyramid complex extends far beyond what we currently see. The desert, in its quiet wisdom, guards these mysteries with the same patience it showed the builders who once walked its surface. As centuries passed, travelers from distant lands approached the pyramids with awe, confusion, and reverence. Greek historians speculated about their purpose. Roman emperors attempted to climb them. Medieval scholars debated their origin, some believing they were built before the Great Flood, others imagining them as granaries or mystical libraries. These interpretations, though often inaccurate, reveal something important. The pyramids provoke imagination. They draw the human mind into deeper questions about origins, purpose, mortality, and the relationship between humanity and the cosmos. Their silence becomes a canvas upon which every era paints its own reflections. Even today, scientists and mystics alike continue to study their angles, proportions, alignments, and internal structure. Satellite imaging reveals alignments previously unnoticed. Ground-penetrating radar hints at undiscovered chambers. Mathematical analysis uncovers geometric relationships that mirror natural constants. Some findings align with known history, others challenge it. Yet this ongoing investigation reflects a truth the Egyptians understood well. Knowledge is not fixed. It evolves, expands, and deepens over time. And a structure, designed to embody cosmic principles, can generate new questions for thousands of years, long after its builders are gone. And as you imagine the pyramids standing beneath a star-filled sky, their silhouettes sharp against the darkness, you sense the quiet dignity of their endurance. They do not speak, yet they communicate. They do not move, yet they guide. They do not change, yet they transform those who contemplate them. In their monumental stillness, they remind us that some truths are not meant to be solved but experienced, not explained but felt. And in this gentle recognition, the pyramids become what they have always been, timeless, patient teachers, inviting us to listen not with the mind alone, but with the soul. As night settles over the desert, the pyramids withdraw into a deeper silence, one that feels older than the sand beneath them and older even than the stars above. Their vast shapes, once blazing under the brilliance of the sun, now become silhouettes carved from darkness. And yet, in this quiet, their presence intensifies. They do not disappear into the night. They become part of it. The boundary between stone and sky softens, as if the pyramids are exhaling centuries of memory into the cool desert air. In this stillness, you begin to feel what countless generations sensed before you, that these monuments are not relics, they are ongoing conversations with the universe. For thousands of years, the pyramids have watched the same stars rise and fall across the horizon, the same moon wax and wane, the same constellations shift their silent positions in the night sky. Civilizations have come and gone, languages have changed, empires have risen and crumbled, yet the pyramids have remained steady, patient, observant. They have lived through every chapter of human history without uttering a word, and in their silence lies their greatest strength. They remind us that permanence is not loud, and wisdom does not need to shout. Sometimes, the most powerful truths are held in structures that simply endure. As you picture the desert stretching endlessly around them, drifting in soft waves beneath a sky glittering with ancient light, you begin to sense why the Egyptians placed such faith in these structures. They believed that within the stillness of stone, the soul could find direction, that within perfect geometry, the universe revealed its patterns, that within the alignment of earth and sky, meaning could arise naturally like dawn breaking over the horizon. And in this belief, they created monuments that do more than mark the past. They echo forward into the future, inviting each generation to pause, breathe, and reconnect with something timeless. The pyramids do not give answers. They give perspective. In their presence, the noise of daily life falls away, replaced by a quiet awareness of scale, of time, of space, of possibility. They remind us that human beings are capable of extraordinary intention, that our creations can reflect not only our hands, but our understanding, our imagination, and our desire to align with something greater than ourselves. In this sense, the pyramids are not just monuments to the dead, they are monuments to potential, to the idea that when knowledge, spirituality, and purpose combine, humanity can carve eternity into the world. And as the final scene fades, sand cooling beneath the night, stars drifting slowly overhead, you may feel that this journey through ancient Egypt has revealed something far more personal. The pyramids stand as symbols of endurance, but also of inner stillness. They teach that meaning is not found in noise or motion, but in alignment, that clarity arises from silence, that the most enduring structures whether carved from stone or shaped within the self, are those built with intention, balance, and connection to the rhythms of the universe. In their eternal presence, the pyramids whisper a truth that transcends time. We are part of something vast, ancient, and endlessly unfolding. And within that vastness, every moment of awareness becomes a step toward eternity.